What's up, guys? My name's Adam Gusky, and you're listening to the Mad Awareness Podcast. Today we're joined by Albie McKinney. He's a former UWL Eagle. That's where I went to school, and he was one of my coaches last year. And he's a great coach to have. He's currently a professional MMA fighter with a record of 14-6, the number one ranked pro fighter in Wisconsin at his weight class. He was a national runner-up in college for La Crosse, and he was a three-time NCAA qualifier. But putting all that stuff aside, Albie's he's had more adversity in his life than most people do. It's quite a unique story and a really cool story. We recorded this on Friday, and I'm doing this intro on Sunday, and I'm still fired up from it. So with no further ado, let's get it rolling. All right, Albie McKinney, how are we doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Adam. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's been a while. What have you been up to since like March or whatever?
Uh, just trying to stay fit. That's kind of my new favorite word is fit, not in shape, but fit. Just trying to find ways to improvise and with not being able to like wrestle for so long, and do MMA, like it was just you gotta get crafty with it.
Explain what you mean by fit versus in shape.
All right, so I got really inspired by a few people, but one of the main ones is a guy I work for, Marv Wanders. He's like really into cycling. And then, as you know, Hayden and Logan Schlew, like they're
Hmm.
like big into like mountain biking and stuff too. But the more I started looking into that stuff, it's like they don't even use the term in shape. Like everywhere else in the world, it's fitness. And it's like your VO2 max, your threshold, your heart rate. So like when people ask me like, "Oh, have you been staying in shape now?" It's like, no, it's just like I'm trying to maintain the highest level of fitness I can possibly have.
Yeah.
So
Have
so it's
you
a lot like what we were talking about kind of before we started recording, like it's got to be a habit.
so like what is the whole VO2 thing? Like I use an Apple Watch for working out and stuff, but I don't really understand like what it's about.
Uh, so to the best of my understanding, your VO2 threshold is your body's ability to get oxygen into your bloodstream, and then that affects like your lactate in your muscles and your lactate threshold. So the higher the VO2 you have, in theory, the better you're gonna like have endurance and the more heart health you're gonna have because your heart is able to pump more oxygen into your bloodstream to feed your muscles.
Okay. So
So
okay.
like it's based on like your heart rate, your resting heart rate, and like did you guys do that last year? Like didn't Malachek have you guys do that with Chris Dodge?
Yeah, I think we did like some sort of experiment or whatever where you go on like the bod pod and it said like a
Hmm.
ton of data and I think that was one of them.
Yeah.
I
So
just
I'm
I just remember like how many calories it said that we could eat. That was insane to me.
that metabolic rate, probably that was probably your resting metabolic rate.
Yeah.
But
But
there's definitely people that have like a better scientific understanding of that than I do, but that's the long and the short of it, from my understanding.
yeah. Yeah, that stuff just like intrigues me now that I'm not wrestling to, like create my own goals and stuff for my workouts.
For
But
sure.
but anyways, so what was life like growing up as a young Albie McKinney?
Ah, um, I don't know. Different, I think. Not. I think. I really am quite sure at this point in my life that I had a different upbringing than a lot of people. And young me, so young age, our house burnt down. We had a house. It was a garage turned into a house. House fire happened. Some squirrels ate some wiring. My brother actually saved our family. My dad
Holy
was
shit.
working. Yeah, so um, he saved us. It was my mom, my two brothers, and then we had two dogs that actually passed away in the fire. Two Springer Spaniels. So that sucked, but
Yeah.
Then we moved to the trailer park in Luck, Wisconsin. And then um, third grade, my parents divorced, separated. And then we moved to St. Paul, Minnesota, and lived on the east side for a couple of years. And then we moved up to Foley, Minnesota, which is where my wrestling career kind of, it was a big pivotal time in my wrestling career and just my upbringing in general, because I wrestled with the same group of guys from kindergarten until third grade, right? And then we moved and I went through all that, and I experienced a lot of different cultures, I guess, from rural Northwest Wisconsin to a huge metropolitan city in St. Paul, and then a somewhat rural but a bigger rural town in Foley, Minnesota when we moved
Okay.
north. And then I was there from fifth grade to seventh grade. And then we moved a little further north to the south shore of Lake Mille Lacs. And I went to Onamia. It would have been middle school. But in Minnesota, you can wrestle in eighth grade on seventh and eighth grade on varsity, right?
Hmm.
So then we were there. And then when I got to my freshman year, I just got tired of being a tumbleweed, and I asked to move back with my dad and my family in Wisconsin. So, but the upbringing, it was just a lot of change all the time, I guess you could say, and a lot of different environments that I don't think a lot of people that I grew up with were experiencing like I was, you know? So, but for better or worse, it allowed me to see um, a lot of different things and a lot of different cultures and a lot of different beliefs. And I think now it was a really big blessing, but when you're living in it, it just seems so turbulent, and you know it's not normal, but you're just kind of rolling with the punches. So, but yeah, I mean, upbringing was from a trailer park to a housing complex to a townhouse to back to an old farmhouse in Northwest Wisconsin. So,
Wow. I like
yeah.
know some of your story just from you being my coach, but like I didn't know any of that, and that's just
Yeah.
adds to it. That's crazy.
Yep. Yep.
So
So, but yeah, I'm grateful for it now, you know.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely. So like, when did you initially start wrestling?
Uh, like four or five, honestly. Like, um, I got old VHS footage of in 1986. So my
Yeah.
uncles wrestled, and there you can see in the background my grandma and my mom actually like carried me into this dual meet in like a little car seat type thing. So uh, I didn't notice that till like high school. I was watching film of my uncles wrestling, but I started wrestling like four or five. But my older brother did it, so I just always wanted to be like him, right? And we like would be just wrestling on a blanket in the front yard, or like we'd lay a blanket down in the living room of the trailer, and my dad would coach us, and my uncles would just like show us stuff, and then we'd go to like your local spring tournaments and kind of just have fun with it.
So like, I know you obviously had a lot of success in high school.
Hmm.
You took second one your sophomore year, and then third as a senior.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
So, well, before we get into that, when did you like make the switch from like wrestling being something fun to do to like taking it really seriously?
I think like I said, when we moved to Foley, that was really a pivotal time for me, because in the Twin Cities, so I went to like Dayton's Bluff Elementary and then Johnson Parkway Elementary. So that was like they didn't really have elementary, like you had clubs, but they didn't really have it at the Boys and Girls Club, and there wasn't like developed youth programs that I could remember. But when we moved to Foley, it was like this wrestling community. Like their teams were winning state championships, like in AA in Minnesota, and they still have a really prominent program. But I just remember when we moved to Foley, I was like, this is what wrestling should be like, you know? And then it was fun to be a part of that, but I wasn't like the born and raised like group of kids from that town.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was exposed to like a high level, a very involved culture, a very involved community. So like I appreciated that. But then I moved north to Onamia my 8th grade year, and I wrestled varsity. And like, there's no way I should have been the varsity wrestler, but our true 103 pounder broke his arm.
Okay.
So like, I was on the team. I weighed 80 some pounds. I had to drink water to weigh 88 to be the
Yeah.
minimum. And I'm not putting this even loosely. Like, I was literally the glorified mop for the mats that season. Like, I was tooled a lot, like bad. So I remember experiencing like a great culture and then a really humbling experience. And then when I moved back to Wisconsin, that for me was like, I wanted to be with that group of guys that I started wrestling with in kindergarten through 3rd grade. Like, like guys that I knew growing up. So there we had like me, Tony Campbell, Mike Stonesafer, Matt Rooney, Renee Vargas, Jake Poliot, Anita Har. I hope I'm not missing anybody. But that was like our group of seniors for a Division III program, and we like all came up together. I think that's everybody. But yeah, so I just wanted to be with them for 4 years of high school, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the best part about wrestling, like doing it with your
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah. And so my freshman year is like really when I went all in with it, because I grew into the weight class and I was like, okay, like change of scenery, back with the people I started with. My cousins were at that school. My brother was on the program, and my whole life, all I ever wanted to do was be on the same team as my brother. And I finally got to my freshman year, and he would have been a junior, and I was just so jacked to be on the same team with him that like that's really when I kind of turned that corner.
How did that freshman year go for you in terms of like wins and losses?
I think I had 5 losses, but all the guys I
Oh, okay.
lost to were either state champs or qualified for state. So like Zach Hagar, I lost to. Adam D. Lander, I lost to. Those two were both state champs. Zach was from Tomahawk. He won
Okay.
D2s that year. D. Lander won D3s that year. Colby Roberts beat me twice, and we were in the same conference. So he beat me at conference, and I want to say the sectional maybe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure at the sectional. And then I got beat by this boys foot guy that I'm still pissed about it, but whatever, it is what it is. For third and fourth to qualify. So I lost to D-Lander in the semis. I was up 4-2. Short time, he gets in on the legs as a freshman, 15-year-old kid. I like go for a cow catcher, and he gets 2-2, beats me 6-4 in the semis. And then I come back on the backside. I'm winning the match. We get injury time. He like bulldogs me over and just pins me, and I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So
definitely. Man,
yeah,
that's
so it went
crazy.
well. Yeah, it went well, but like that's when I was like, oh, I can wrestle with some of these dudes.
So did you weigh like a little over the weight class that year?
Yeah, I was probably like 105 pounds, 6 pounds. Like, oh my god, cutting 3, but cutting any amount of weight was better than drinking 8 pounds of water.
Yeah. So then you take second the next year, and
Yep.
then you take third your senior year. You lose one match, and the match is like 6-4. So pretty
Yep.
successful year. But like I guess like I don't want to get too much into your high school career because there's so much other good stuff. But
Yeah.
like what would you attribute most of your success to that helped you make the biggest jumps in high school?
Uh, well, I think I don't blessings for lack of, like not to be cliche, but it was a lot of blessings. Like I got to wrestle my high school coach, Harry Johns. Ended up there, but he was at St. Croix Falls when St. Croix Falls won a state championship. He was at
Okay.
Osceola when Osceola won a state championship. So, and he's from Pennsylvania, Katanning, Pennsylvania, where Jason Nolf's from. Uh,
Okay.
so this guy just like old school guy, just knew how to keep it simple and get the most out of people. And so that, and not only him, but like the assistants, Chris Bartlett, Larry Wright. We had Mike Kelly, Pete Kelly came in. They would volunteer sometime helping us out. Hibbs, Jordan Hibbs. So just like the involvement was big. And then I just, yeah, like you meet the right people. So after you have a little bit of success, you kind of see, you meet the other people that are winning and you're like, oh, hey, what, you know what it is, right? Like, you see the other people having success, you rub shoulders with them. Like you learn about bigger tournaments in the summer, bigger challenges. But in all honesty, like I remember I would have like some success and then I would have a huge humbling experience. Like between my freshman year and my sophomore year, I went to Northern Plains, and I'll never forget this. It was in La Crosse. This is when Northern Plains used to be in La Crosse, right?
Oh.
My grandma drove me 3.5 hours to wrestle Northern Plains. I went 0-2, and like my first match was against Oli Delia. He from Waterford, wrestled for Central
Okay.
Michigan. He's from the east side of the state. He has higher level wrestling now.
Oh. Okay.
I got literally obliterated. Like he teched me. I might not. It might have been less than a minute. That is not an exaggeration. But I just remember being like, oh man, like my grandma just drove 3.5 hours one way for me to just get lit up like that. But then you like get remotivated. You're like, okay, maybe I'm not at that level yet. But then I went back to the drawing board. And after those two losses, I don't even remember who the other guy was. I just remember Oli beat me that bad. And I just trained my butt off the rest of the season. And then I go and have a good year where you only have 3 losses. So it's like peaks and valleys, right? But the original question was success, like who was I hanging out with or what can I attribute my success to?
Yeah. Just like what helped
Yeah.
you make the biggest jumps.
That just them humbling experiences. And then for me, like I'd be a real jerk if I didn't mention like when I met Jake Lewis, my sophomore year, we met and it was just crazy. So he was really high ranked in the nation at that time, but
Okay.
he won a state title that year. I took second. He was from Amory. His coach Scott Marco wrestled at St. Croix Falls, and Harry was Scott's coach, and then Scott was the coach at Amory, so we all knew each other, right?
Okay.
But Jake was just so gifted and blessed and talented at such a young age, and to just be fortunate enough to be around him, I just learned a lot of stuff by just being able to be on the mat with him, right? And that's not that guys in my room weren't good, but like he just really brought me to that next level. Like wrestling in the summer, his family was the first people that told me about like freestyle and Greco State, so I did that. um, this is probably a good time to segue into why I did so terribly my junior year. Um, I went from taking second in the state to being a full blown drug addict at 16 years old. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And that had nothing to do with anybody really that I was wrestling with, because that's what the problem was. I stopped wrestling and I started partying, and uh,
So you
it really
stopped
showed it.
wrestling?
Like I just stopped wrestling like I was. Like I would wrestle at least 2 to 3 days a week in the summer, because Harry was big on like take time off, be a kid, go fishing, enjoy some time off.
Hmm.
But I would just like I wanted to be wrestling a little more than that. But from my sophomore year into my junior year, I just was like I made the, the mistake of thinking that once I got to a level that I was just going to stay at that level, you know, without putting the work in. So um, I was doing drugs and drinking and just not doing what I was supposed to be doing. And then it showed. Like, I didn't need to even tell anybody. You could just see. I think I had more losses as a junior than I did as a freshman, you know?
Dang.
And then that's when my junior year was really like, after junior, I had such a terrible performance. Pretty sure Jake, he might have won state that year. That might have been, or he won state. He made the Fargo finals in Greco, wrestled Dustin Schlater, and then maybe he got upset by Joe Clothier that junior year. But still, like, I had an awful year. And then Jake was
Damn.
like, "Yo, we got to wrestle more. We got to do more." And then that's when it was like I was just driving, like, at least 2 to 3 times a week to his parents' house to train in their garage. Like, it was just a huge blessing. They had a 2-car garage. Half of it was a gym. And I'm not just talking like couple wrestling mats. It was like the best gym within 100 miles. There was a double end bag, a heavy bag, a speed bag, sit up bench, mats from wall to wall. Just like, and then he had like posters of previous like Wisconsin teams. So I remember like looking at the wall and there's posters of like Ben Askren and Luke Smith and Nate Pisecki and Joe Henning and Craig Henning and all these like amazing Wisconsin wrestlers, like just
Like
on a
legends.
poster on the wall. Yeah, like legit legends, right? So like I'm like, oh, like that's them are the dudes. Like, that's what we're working for, you know? And like Jake was on there, Josh and Jordy Crass, just a bunch of beasts, man. So yeah, but being with Jake and putting in that time, like training like that was really like, that really pushed me to the next level.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like a badass garage.
Yeah, man, it was still to this day, it's probably one of my favorite places I've ever got to train at.
Garage goals. Nice.
Yeah.
So, and then you take third year, senior year, pretty successful year though. Um,
hmm
so what was your life like before? I know you went to a few schools like Western Tech, but in
Yep.
between like your senior year and then when you got to UWL, I guess just like take me through that period of your life.
Ooh. Okay, so um, I ended up I I was pretty naive, to be honest. That's the only way to put it. I was very naive. I was very stubborn, and I remember somebody saying at some point like, "Oh, you only got to get a 17 to get in to D1 program." And like in my mind, I was like, I want to go D1, right? Like every
Like on the
17-year-old kid.
ACT or something.
Yeah, you got to get 17 on the ACT to get into a D1 program, somebody said. So like, me being me, I went hungover, and I don't know how, but I pulled off a 17. Like, I think for like the science part of it, I was just like making a pattern in the Scantron. Like,
Damn.
it was not good. It was not good.
That's kind of impressive though for being
Yeah,
hungover and yeah.
yeah. I mean, for better or worse, right? But I'm not proud of it. I really not. But like
Yeah.
it,
It's a good story now
what?
though. You learn
Yeah.
from it.
Looking back on it, so I was like, okay, like I still got a shot. Like, I just got to win state and maybe go All American at Fargo, and you know, cool, you know. I just remember like the only offer I got for D1 was like to Appalachian State, and I just remember looking at the letter and I was like, where is Appalachian State? You know? And I was like, no, because I grew up Northwest Wisconsin. Like, all I ever wanted to do is like, that's when the Gophers were winning national championships, you know? And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll wrestle for the Gophers. And why I believe this is because at Badger State games, I beat this guy that ended up going and wrestling for the Gophers. So I was like, oh, I mean, like, it's logical, right? But there's a reason he went wrestling for the Gophers. He was a student athlete. He wasn't just, gonna think he's gonna wrestle and think it's all gonna work out. So I'm waiting. I'm trying to see if I'm gonna get these offers. I go to senior nationals. I relapsed from the state tournament to senior nationals. Got torched out there. I went 0-2. I mean, the highlight of my weekend was watching Dustin Schlater beat Brent Metcalf. Not because I don't like Metcalf, but because like it was just an amazing match to watch.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm like, okay, if I can't get into, if I don't go there, maybe I'll go to Augsburg, right? So I'm like waiting for schools, seeing if anybody wants to like, recruit me. I got recruited by Russ Peliquin from Eau Claire at the Northern Badger, and God bless Russ Peliquin because he's a good dude. And then Mike Kelly was a coach at Harper Community College. And then there was a guy from Itasca that recruited me because some of the guys I wrestled with from Mille Lacs were up there.
Okay.
So I decided to go to Harper. And then I got to Harper, and that's where my roommate was Anthony Azarian. Rest in peace, Anthony. He's a great guy. But Anthony Azarian, Justin Barone, and Craig Tokarski. So we ended up in Palatine, Illinois. We actually lived in Rolling Meadows. But I went there because Mike Kelly is from St. Croix Falls. Harry coached him. He was a coach there. There was a connection. But I went from Luck, Wisconsin to northern suburb of Chicago, and I was like 9 hours from home. It was a culture shock. I was doing well at first, and then I was being uncoachable, and I ended up losing my spot to Andy MacArthur, who ended up going to Lindenwood and being he's a two-time All-American in JUCO, and then I'm pretty sure he was a two-time All-American for Lindenwood. So I went there first semester, and after first semester, one of the assistants, Chris Winter, pulled me aside just before semester, and he's like, hey, we think you should redshirt. And I just remember thinking, like, I didn't come here to redshirt, So I was like heated about it. My ego was just inflated. And I just was very bitter about it. And I just was like, no, I'm just gonna move home. So I moved home at semester, and I ended up working in a factory, and then I ended up doing some roofing. And I just remember working in that factory, like, I will do anything to go back to school. This is not it. So I did that. I did some blue collar work, really. And then Jake was at Nebraska at that time. And Jake, that's his story to tell another day, but he had some things that happened, and he was looking to transfer to La Crosse. So one of the jobs I actually got, his dad hooked me up with. I was roofing, and still training. That's when I started doing MMA. So like we were doing MMA. I was training. That's where I really got I started training MMA at Lewis's. But my uncles and a bunch of people just were influential in that. So I was like, all right, I'll do this to stay active, and it was going well. And then Jake's like, yo, I think I'm going to transfer to La Crosse. And our buddy Jim Jones was at La Crosse at the time. And then our other buddy, Tony Belvedere, who's a great wrestler in his own right, we were all like, okay, let's all go to La Crosse, and like we'll wrestle, and it'll be awesome. So there was like from 2005 to 2006, 2007, I was just like working and training MMA and trying to stay busy and making dumb decisions like 18 to 20-year-old would do. And then I got back, but I didn't get into school right away. Like Jake got accepted. Tony and me had to go to TC. Jim was already in school. So I got accepted to TC. I'm like, all right, we'll take it anyway we can get it, right?
Yeah.
But we all moved at second semester because Jordan Wendlandt from Chautauqua, who Jim wrestled with, moved out. So I moved into his spot. And this is the funny part of the story. So my grandma had a purple minivan, and we took the back seats out, and we just loaded up like my mattress. It was a twin size mattress, no box spring, like an old football bag full of clothes, and like whatever I could fit in there. And my dad was riding up front, and I just remember we pulled into the parking lot of this complex, 1015 Main Street. We're in the back of this building, and my dad like looks back at me, and he's like, you better not be home in 4 months this time. And I was like, challenge accepted. So I just like, I like grabbed my bed out of the back. I like grabbed my bag. I just like shut the door, and I like, I'm doing it, you know? And so that was kind of the start of the whole lacrosse journey.
So,
But
for those listening, like Western Tech is like a technical school that like some people have to go to like get their grades up or something like that before they can get into UWL pretty much.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the tech school. So in La Crosse, there's three universities, well, a tech school and two universities within like 5 square miles. There's Viterbo, La Crosse, and TC. But the biggest blessing in disguise of this whole thing is that Bebeto was also, that's when I met Bebeto. Bebeto was at TC. I was at TC. Tony was at TC. The whole irony of this whole story too is Chris Winter, who was an assistant at Harper, ended up coming to La Crosse in those 2 years to use his eligibility to wrestle. So he was like
Oh,
on the roster at La Crosse. And I was like, oh man, like
yeah.
you can believe whatever you want, but that was like, for me, that was a really big moment, like in understanding my faith in this journey, because I was like, how does that even happen? Of all the places in all the world, this guy was coaching me 2 years ago and now he's wrestling here. But like, it was a really big opportunity because we mended that fence, and he ended up being somebody that was very instrumental of me like getting that final push from being in tech school to being getting into the UWL room. So like, he was like, when he decided he didn't want to wrestle at UWL, he became like the gray shirt coach. So like, gray shirting is like red shirting, but kind of not really,
Yeah.
like he volunteered his time, which I'm grateful for. And that's a big reason that I think volunteer work is kind of really important just for the sport in general. But he gave me his time, and like, he didn't ask for anything in return other than just me to have a good attitude and pay it forward, right? So I had Chris Winter, Chris Stratton, Nick Ammerman, and Nick Ammerman, who's the best man at my wedding. These three guys were they gave me their time, man, and I'm forever grateful for that, because I couldn't wrestle in the room with the guys, right? So they just kind of got me ready to make that transition. They coached me at the opens that I got to go compete at before I made that shift. And then I had Bebeto. Like, who better can you ask for as a training partner,
Explain who Bebeto is.
Oh my God. How do you put it in words, man?
Well, first, like, how good is he at wrestling?
Good is a understatement, like huge understatement. But Beto, and here's the whole thing about life, right? I thought I had humble beginnings, or like a pretty modest, right? Like, I came here with a bag and a bed. Like, Beto came with less than that. Like, that is not an exaggeration. If he's comfortable telling his story, I would encourage you to ask him to share his story. But he didn't, like, Ron Lewis, Jake's dad, he always used to tell me, train like you're poor. And like, that is, I'm not saying he was poor, but like, he just trained like that. That was it. Like, that you could tell, like, he was so passionate about it and he loved it. And that shit was contagious. Like, pardon my language, but I was like, oh, I
Okay.
train hard. I train hard, but like, then you watch a 135-pound human being go in the weight room. So I remember like one of the first experiences I had with him, we're in the weight room and he puts 2 plates on the bench press. And I'm like, yeah, no way. No way. Not 3 reps max. And I'm not even exaggerating. He just starts repping 225. And he after 10, I was just like, this is ridiculous. And he was 133 pounds, right? Maybe 140
Holy
at that time.
crap.
Dude, I couldn't even back squat that much for 5 if I was lucky. So,
That's
but yeah,
crazy. Tell that to Sawyer
insane.
Starbucker and Stanger.
Yeah, yeah. Like, that's why everyone's like, oh, I'm working. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're only, we got more to go. But so, and like, he just, he's a man of few words. Like me, I could kind of spin a yarn and I could be a chatty Cathy, but he's just so modest and humble, and his work ethic. Like you're like, oh, I work hard, and then you see him work, and you're like, oh, I could work harder, you know. And he just was like that guy that he would just like bring it out of you. He'd like, come on, you can do it. I'll get you there. I'll help you, you know. And he would be there at 5:30 in the morning for a drill. He would be there at 7 o'clock at night if you wanted to go for a run. I don't want to get anybody in trouble with this, but guys say how much they love wrestling and how much they train. I don't know many other guys that were willing to remove the ceiling panels in Mitchell Hall to sneak in through the roof, in through the ceiling to get into the wrestling room, to not do anything destructive, but to just wrestle, you know?
Yeah.
And on several occasions, like Bebeto, I would just like, he would stand on my shoulders and I'd push him up, or he'd push me up, and we'd open the door and we'd just wrestle on a Sunday or whatever, you know? And that inspired me, man. So that's the long and the short of it. He's got so many other great things about him, but brings the best out of people for sure.
Man, it's cool like seeing this dude on the wall and just like hearing about your career, but then hearing like the real stories behind everything.
Yeah. So, and a lot of people see that and they just like, they see that guy on the wall, and he's kind of larger than life, because not only was he a 3-time NCAA finalist, 2-time champ, he's done something that very few people, just in general, I'm not even going to put it in a category of like divisions. I'm so over that conversation. Like everybody's like, well, they're D3 athlete. Like everybody needs to stop making those excuses, because I'm always advocating for guys like Bebeto represented Cameroon at the World Championships. You know, he goes out and wrestles a world medalist like to a tough match. He's winning the match, you know. And then you get guys like Nazar, you know, like he's super high level, right? And then you go back, Jim Grunwald was a world champ, Greco, you know. So I think we just need to love wrestling for the sake of loving wrestling, and not kind of selling people short of their potential, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, so you see him, and you see he's larger than life, but he put his shoes on the same as everybody else, man.
Yeah, it's cool to hear about that stuff. But to wind back into your career, so you're at Western, and then how are you there for just like 1 year, and then you go to UWL?
Oh, I wish. I was there for a year and a half. So because of the choices I made at Harper, my GPA was shot. So it took me a year and a half to get my GPA up to where it was acceptable at UWL. And yeah, so that's like, when I talk to you guys about adversity, that for me was like huge patch of adversity in my life, and it's life altering. That's kind of what I was thinking about when I was trying to find the words to describe it. But we all have life altering experiences, right? It's not life ending. Like you're gonna have a moment that's life ending, but we have a lot of life altering experiences, and I just had several of them in a short period of time while being at TC. So I'm gray shirting, right? And I've told you this story. At that time, I had some tragedy hit my family where it was 2007. This is summer. I was back home. I was working landscaping for Lakeside Landscaping in Balsam Lake. God bless the Strzelczyk family. I was on Deer Lake, and I was putting in timber steps. Actually, I was just watching Nick Strzelczyk just pound these like 9-inch nails into these timber steps on the lake shore. Yeah, like you go, man. Yeah, let me get that maul. I was like, dink. I was like, you better just take this thing back. But yeah, I got a phone call, and I don't know if I'll ever forget that day, because my dad got in a motorcycle accident, and he's paralyzed from the chest down. And then in that recovery process, like it was like less than a month. I was at Regents Hospital visiting my dad, and then I got the call that said they found a tumor in my mom's head. So then I drove up to St. Cloud, Minnesota, and she was laying in the hospital bed, and she was like responsive, but like pretty unresponsive. She wasn't verbal. She could like squeeze her hand, but so they found a baseball sized tumor in her head, and they ended up doing emergency surgery, and they removed that, but it was unsuccessful, and then she ended up passing shortly thereafter. So within a 2 month period, my dad was paralyzed, and then my mother passed away. So uh, it was just really, right? It's life altering. You have these, and I tell you guys, you have choices, right? And in a moment like that of complete despair, you have two choices, two absolute truths. You're either gonna go this way, and you're gonna use it to make you better and to fuel you, or you're gonna go this way, and you're gonna make excuses, and you're gonna allow it to be that cloud that doesn't stop hanging over your head, and you're going to use it to justify every dumb decision you ever make for the rest of your life. And I did that for a little bit, but it just got old quick, and I was like, we got to go this way, you know? And that's when I just like, I made a vow that I was like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to, do the best I can. I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to be the person I'm supposed to be. Dave Malachek, like he'll tell you, he saw, yeah, I had cigarettes in my ear on Facebook. He's like, you'll never wrestle for me if that's who you are and that's the way you're gonna act. And I just remember thinking like, I want to be somebody that people look at, and you don't have to like me, but at least they're like, at least he stood for something, and he's a respectable human being. And as crazy as that sounds, that is what propelled me to do all those things and be the student athlete I was capable of being, because that's ultimately what it is. Like I was an idiot for just thinking that I was just going to go wrestle and not learn anything in the process, right? So,
So, man, it's hard
and I don't know if
after
that
hearing
answers,
something like that.
yeah, I don't know if that answers your original question, but I think that's what kind of triggered that response.
So, like, those things happen, and then, like, did you just like, was that right before you went to UWL?
Yeah, so that happened that summer, and then I I really buckled down that semester. I came in the fall, and I was like, I got in at India at the semester after that had happened,
Okay.
and it was just, yeah. I don't know if that had anything to do. I'd like to believe I got in on my effort, and because I got the grades, and because I did. You can't get into UW without the grades. But did they throw me a bone on it? Maybe, I don't know, but it was what I needed at that time. So it just was weird how it all played out. Happened in the summer, but I got it in January, and I was so pumped. And I was a dark horse. Like nobody saw me coming. That was my favorite part about that whole year, was that but Beto started that semester. So Beto got in one semester before me, and he was in, and I was just like thinking, and Alex Dahl was on the roster, and like me and Dahl were pretty tight, so I was super pumped to wrestle with him. And yeah, I came in that semester, and it was just what I needed. Got the spot, earned the spot, not got the spot. That's what I love about wrestling. There's nothing given in the sport. It's everything is earned. And earned the spot, went to the conference tournament, won the conference tournament in Oshkosh. As like, I don't even know what the seed was, but nobody, like I remember Zach Mueller from Oshkosh said something along the lines of like, who the hell is this guy? And I was like, well, that's what's up, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's just, yeah. It's a process. Like I didn't even know if I was going to get in at semester until like, I don't know, classes started in August, September, and maybe like November, mid-November, I got the news, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So this is like my totally biased opinion that UWL is like the greatest school in the world. Like just walking around campus, there's just something in the air where it's just like I can't believe I'm here and I'm lucky to be here and I don't want it to end. But like you just told us about all of the struggles that you went through to get there and all the things that happened in your life. So like how good did it feel to like just finally be there?
for me, it was honestly the most gratifying feeling. It might be, I don't want to rank it, but it's up in that echelon of most gratifying things I've ever done because you got to understand, I graduated the bottom 5% of my class in high school. And that's not even, that's like, if you look at the stats, I was bottom 5% in my class. And to just be able to be on the campus with the people from my high school so I graduated with 53 kids. Let's just do the numbers on it. Bottom 5%, like I wasn't supposed to be there to begin with, but Mike Stonecipher, Pete Bile, Ashley Opitz, Kelsey Swenson ended up being four kids from our school that went there. And Kelsey and Ashley ended up transferring and going to do other stuff. But Pete Bile graduated with a degree in physical education. He lives out in Montana now. And then Mike, I think I want to say English or history was his major. But just to feel like I was with those guys from my hometown on the campus. And then not only that, but the culture of the wrestling team, like it's a feeling that I don't you just gotta experience, you know it, right? When you're part of something like that,
It's
it's
awesome.
hard to put into words, yeah. And I mean, just fortunate enough to like when I wrestled there, we took third, second, third as a team. So like we were right there and we were like super competitive.
That's
And
crazy.
then yeah. Um and like I could tell you stories and stories about guys that like even now like they might not have got the a ton of recognition as being on the wrestling side of stuff, but like there's so many amazing guys. Like a couple of my favorite guys to talk about now are like Andy Moore is like a Green Beret. Tim Palmer is like Army Ranger. Richard Carlson is in the military. He's like deployed right now. Like them guys are serving our country like bona fide badasses, right? Dan Laurent is like a genius. Matt Mosseth, I remember driving him to his first day of grad school at the U of M for like biochem. Um, Bobby Dorn's like a chiropractor. Eric Tuhey, he's coming back. He's like an MD. You know, I'm like, so like it's cool to talk about the things that like we can do as wrestlers. And like Tuhey, now he's on the ladder for Greco. You know, like
Yeah.
Richard Carlson still he's on the ladder for Greco. Like that's my favorite thing about this too is that like remember like we were talking about how I said it before. It's like you got super competitive guys that are just like putting the excuses to the wayside and just going out and doing the best that they can do, right? So now I don't know. It inspires me to want to be better, you know. But being on the campus at UWL, like you're spot on. Like it is one of the most amazing feelings being on that campus and getting your degree from there, which took me way longer than was necessary, but it got done. So
Yeah.
do you know that story?
No, I don't.
Oh my god. All right, one more story and then this one's good. So
They're all good. Keep going.
oh my god. So I got into UWL, right? I almost blow it because I ended up like I took second and I was on track to graduate. I went through like a terrible breakup. I was with this girl from 2007 till 2011, going into 2012, and we broke up. And I moved up to the cities and I relapsed bad. It was bad, severe relapse. And I mean, I only laugh about it because in hindsight, it's like, wow, how did that even happen? But so I left, I like dropped two of my classes and then I just bombed two of my classes. So I was like so close to getting my degree and I almost pissed it all away.
So this was
But
in like
then,
April after you were done wrestling.
no, this is a whole year because I went right into MMA after. So like I went out to highs and lows, peaks and valleys, right? I take second in the country. Instead of going on spring break, I went out with Tony Belvedere to the Ultimate Fighter tryouts. And all I wanted was like, I wanted to be there to support him and like help him prepare to get it on the show. And I got out there and dude, I partied for a week, man. Like I was just drinking and going hard. And I got out there and like I met the criteria for tryouts. So like I literally was at the back of the line. I was the last person in line. This guy, Brandon Garner, look him up. He qualified for the show at 155, but he got DQ'd by an illegal knee and he was winning the fight. Somehow they like told him no. They called him. This guy's standing next to me in line and I'm like watching this whole line. So here's what happens in the old tryouts. You grapple in front of the matchmaker at the time, who was Joe Silva, and like maybe it was Sean Shelby and McMaynard. Don't quote me on that, but there's like a panel of matchmakers that watch you grapple, and it was kind of just luck of the draw. Wherever you were in line, like you just grappled the guy next to you. Well, like I'm watching this pattern form, and like Tony goes out and he grapples well, so I'm like, yeah, super job, Tony, good, yeah, awesome. And I'm like looking next to me, and I see this guy. This guy's like one of the first people to get their black belts from Hoist Gracie. He's from North Carolina. I mean, dude, this dude is just gorded. So I go out there, and the rules are you grapple for 2 minutes. Every submission you get, they give you $100. Well,
Dude, I did not know any of this. This is insane.
yeah. So, needless to say, I that that guy got his flight paid for because he like 3 or 4 times in 2 minutes, he just like wrecked me. Like I remember he snapped me down, and you start on your knees. So I'm like, all right, this can't be that bad. I'll take it. He like snaps me down to a front headlock. He almost chokes me unconscious. I'm like literally like almost snoring. And they're like, "Do you want to be done?" And I was like, "No, man. Like I'm not taking it like a bitch." Like so I just for 2 minutes got just worked. And so but then I went back and I was like, all right, so that year, but Beta was still wrestling. So I was like training MMA up at Ironworks in Holman. So like that's where if it wasn't for Nick Ammerman and Eric Anderson and Troy Pulowski and everybody involved in that, like I might have been a lost cause because I was training up there and yeah, so that was happening. And then I went through the breakup and then I moved up to the cities and I was still trying to train, but I relapsed. So I just like, again, when I wasn't in the gym, I was out getting in trouble. Right. And I ended up going to jail. I got arrested. It was awful. So I get arrested. I had to do 9 months with good time in Polk County, Wisconsin. And good time means every 3 days you go without not getting in trouble, they take a day off your overall sentence. So I ended up doing just over 6 months. And I got out and I had no car. I was staying on my uncle's on a futon, walking to work in a wood factory. And I was just like, I remember being in jail and this guy was like, Mose is his last name. I was having a pity party. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm better than this. Like, not in a arrogant way, but I was like, I'm supposed to be doing more. And dude looked me right in the face and he goes, Albie, right where you're at is right where you're supposed to be. And I just took that and again, right? I could have took it this way and just, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. I'm a fuck up. But I was like, there's something to that. So I just was like, right where I'm at is right where I'm supposed to be. So I remember everything in that process of being on probation and finding a recovery and staying sober. It was like, right where I'm at is right where I'm supposed to be. And then I got back into school in 2015. And thank God for Alex Dahl because I moved in with him and Corey Scanlon. I love Corey Scanlon. He's doing great things for the wrestling community in the La Crosse area wrestlers, and all them guys up there. So um, I was living with them guys, so it just was like being around the right people again, you know. And I got back into school, and that's when I met Garrett Carlson. And yeah, Garrett had like long hair when I met him. Oh man, it's great. But so like he inspired me. I was able to. I'll put it loosely, but I was able to mentor him, right? And then you know his story, how he never wrestled. He never even played sports really in high school. Goes on to make the team, and now he's undefeated
After
amateur
like
MMA fighter.
2 years of trying out and not making it.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's what if he takes all the credit, he did all the work, man. But if I inspired him to in any area, I hope it was just that resiliency of like staying committed. If you want something, just keep plodding along at it. So I'm going to school. I'm like 27 years old. I'm on campus, and I ended up getting my degree, you know, but it took me like another year after I got back. And the craziest part about this whole story is like I filed for graduation or applied for graduation. I walk across the stage to find out I got a D in statistics. So I was like, no way. So I got to come back in the fall to take statistics again. So I take a
You have
whole
to
other
have like a C or something.
C or better. And the crazy thing is I got to override to get into upper level psych classes because I took general psych at TC. So there's like, how did all this happen, right? So because I qualified from some classes, but I didn't take some prerequisites, and I'm like, I couldn't tell you. But so I'm taking stats as a senior, like super duper senior, and I got a D, and I'm like, oh, this is embarrassing. So I go back, I take it with the same professor in the fall, and I'm going into the final, and I'm like, we're close, we're cutting it close. I got like a 71%. I'm like, hey man, like, can I get some extra credit? What can I do to show you that I'm deserving of a C? Oh, you'll be fine. Just show up at the final. That final was like 5 pages front and back. I'm like, not this again. I ended up getting another D. So like I ended up, I had to like file an appeal with the dean of the psych department. Thank God that it all worked out, but I ended up getting my degree. So,
Dang.
but that's the lesson. Like if anything I could tell you, like the theme of my, not only my wrestling career, but just my life is like, my favorite scripture is a righteous man fall down 7 times and stand up 8, and don't laugh at other people when they come across their own trials and tribulations, because it'll come back on you, you know? Like that's the long and the short of it, but that's so applicable. Is like you get knocked down, but if you keep getting back up and who says that you can't get where you want to go, you know?
And that's all I got for you guys this week. Man, that was a crazy story. I'm glad that I got to share this with you guys. I'm glad that he shared it, because I've known Albie for probably 3 years now, and I didn't even know some of that stuff. And just hearing it really made me so grateful for so many of the things that I have in my life. And I hope it does the same for you guys. Anyways, if you enjoy the show, please leave it a rating and review. Make sure you're subscribed and all that jazz. If you guys enjoyed the show or hated it, please leave me some feedback on the Mad Awareness Instagram or Twitter. Just hit me up. That's the only way I can make this show better. So appreciate that, and thanks for listening. Have a good one.